Today we are going to talk about the new partnership which Insightsoftware has announced with TimeXtender. So we'll just kick straight into this. So what we're going to talk about today really is, I'll just overview sort of the challenge that a lot of organisations are having with AI coming, and probably management's asking questions how we can take advantage of that. So we'll just talk a little bit about that, the general challenge with, move to the cloud and how we can take advantage, or how we can use our data within the AI space. I'll just explain some terms because there's just lots of terminology, so I'll just go through. And this announcement's just been made, and there's some actually some products which don't have new names yet, so I'm just kind of giving them names. We'll go through the timeline and the background. We'll talk about the changes to the existing Jet Analytics tool that you have done. So just bear in mind, if you have Jet Analytics, you have Jet Reports. This is Jet Analytics is fundamentally, in terms of software, just completely separate software product from Jet Reports. So Jet Reports won't be discussing it all today. That's a separate tool, and I'm not sure whether they'll be making any changes for the cloud, with regard to the new capabilities of Data Manager. So we'll be talking about the changes in the Jet Data Manager, which is what you as a customer currently have. And we'll also talk about some new capabilities and add-ons that are available through this new partnership, and then we'll go through next steps. So I guess the question comes: what are these problems that we're trying to solve today in the environment that we're in at the moment? So many companies have tried AI, and a lot of them have tried them as pilots. And while a lot of them have said, haven't declared the AI pilot a failure, what most of them, something like 75-80%, have said, we haven't realised the benefits that we were hoping for at this particular point in time. And the main reason for that is that the underlying data isn't ready for AI to be able to take advantage of. So really, that's where the big issue is, and it's always a good thing to get your data right before you, plug all these fancy tools onto the top of it. So that's sort of really about, the AI, and we're just wanting to address the data foundation that serves that. And at the moment, you might want to stitch together many solutions, or you might say, okay, well, let's go to Snowflake, let's go to Fabric, and then we're kind of driving down a road and saying, okay, well, we hope we picked the right horse here. So that's where we've got these sort of fears that a lot of people have. On one hand, people are saying, okay, we need to act, we don't want to get left behind. The board expects progress. We've got to get our data right. But then, okay, we make this big bet. The risk is that we decide to go down a path and then find out later that this is either the wrong path, or that path is a lot more complicated and expected than we first thought. So we're going to just talk about how TimeXtender actually solves this. So first thing I just want to say is TimeXtender is the provider of the Jet Data Manager software. So when I say TimeXtender, I want you to understand that that's the options that TimeXtender provides today and will provide in the future will become available to. There will be different options, and pricing is something later, but that is something that will be available for the Jet Analytics people to acquire at short time in the future. So TimeXtender solves this by we don't have to lock in that technology. So some examples here is we can have an endpoint in our semantic model. We could change that from a tabular endpoint, which or Power BI endpoint, to a click endpoint. We could change our storage from Fabric to Snowflake, and the reason that we can do this so easily is because the work is done on the metadata and the logic, and the tool translates that logic and metadata into the correct code based on the solution that we're looking at. So, for example, if our underlying storage platform is on-premise SQL, is using SQL code, Fabric instead uses Spark notebooks, which is a new language to learn. So TimeXtender knows that, and it goes, okay, I'm going to create a Spark notebook instead of creating some SQL script. So it handles that type of technical challenge where, saves you having to get a whole lot of specialists in to work on all these different languages, etc. The next thing is that we help eliminate the tool sprawl. So what that means is that we inside of these platforms, okay, well, we need a tool to help with that. We need a tool to help with the ingestion and data modeling, and then you've got all these tools, and they might all do a good job of what they do, but we have to actually put them all together and stitch them up together. And TimeXtender's recently, really focusing on AI readiness, and that's in terms of making sure that our data is ready for AI. For example, MCP server, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on, explain what that is around about now. So first thing I want to do is explain just some of the terms that have been out there. Some of you will know this very well. It might be new to some of you. Some of you might have heard about them, but just want a little bit of, sort of what's the difference between all of these. So the first one we've got here is Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So Microsoft 10 years ago had built the Azure Data Lake. That was good. And then they went to Gen 2, which is like a different technology under the hood. And really, this is about storage services. The big thing about this is that it's cheap. It can take structured and unstructured data, and it's a place for storage. Okay, so and then we have OneLake, which is essentially like a software as a service version of ADLE's 2, Gen 2. So that's sort of the data lake with some capability over the top of it. And then I'm sure most of you have all heard about Microsoft Fabric, and the Fabric is sort of pulling together of a whole lot of bits and pieces within the system into Fabric, and that has like the sort of data analytics workload. So if I have an analogy here, I say, well, the data lake and the data warehouse, the data lake guy and the data warehouse person went to the pub and they found out, they said, oh, what do you do? And they go, oh, jeepers, we could actually get together because we're really good at storing the data, and the data we're really good at analysing the data. So putting those two together is really kind of Fabric Lakehouse. It gives you that analytics capability, but it sits on within the OneLake software as a service. And then finally, the last term I just want to, last general term I want to talk about is MCP server. So MCP server is essentially like a protocol server. It's like a software component that exposes structured capabilities such as tools and resources and prompt templates, allowing large language models to interact with your systems in a way which is consistent, standardized, and secure. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's a general term. If you Google that, all of these terms are not not related to the TimeXtender or the Jet analytics platforms. They're just general BI type terms. So more terms to explain, which will relate more to because the TimeXtender and Jet analytics space is you'll hear is ODX. So ODX stands for Operational Data Exchange. We now refer to this as the ingestion layer where all of the raw data is landed. We'll talk about this a little bit later on because this is a variation from what, if you have Jet Analytics at the moment, it's a variation in the way that we handle the data. TDI is short for TimeXtender Integration, which is fundamentally the new cloud version of what you would have installed today being the Jet Data Manager. The reason I'm calling it TDI or TimeXtender Integration is that Insightsoftware hasn't released a name for this yet. So I would call it Jet something, but I don't know what it's going to be. So when I say TDI or TimeXtender Integration, that's the new bit that is coming. But what I do know is that they've rebranded. They will be rebranding the current version of Jet Analytics or the Jet Data Manager that they have, and recalling that Jet Analytics Classic. And that will be kind of defined as the on-premise version. So that if you want to stay on-prem, that's fine. You'd stick with Jet Analytics Classic. But as you would probably expect, with the big investments go into the new cloud versions and that sort of thing. Okay, so a little bit of a timeline. Back in 2010, 16 years ago, it's making me feel old. Jet had an OEM partnership with TimeXtender. That was limited to Dynamics NAV. A couple of years later, they expanded that partnership to Microsoft Dynamics AX, which is cloud version now, is F&O, Finance and Operations. And that's continued. And now in 2023, so TimeXtender started working on a different concept, and they redesigned the product with this ODX, and that was kind of available in your current versions, but no one really deployed it because it was quite different. And so TimeXtender's redesigned that with the cloud intent, and they call that V21, or which is what today is what I'm referring to as TimeXtender Integration, or TDI. And that was not available to Jet customers. So in the last few years, they've done a lot of modern updates and a lot of, I'll show you the interface shortly, and you'll go, oh, that's not, it actually looks quite similar. But the big change is behind the scenes. It's the stuff that you can't see, because instead of deploying to a SQL database, it might be deploying into these cloud services, a data lake or Lakehouse or something like that. So very much a lot of plumbing, and that's really what the whole kind of benefit of the tool has. Jet and TimeXtender had a partnership with CData, and that partnership kind of ended quite quickly, and I know that's caused some angst amongst some people. Since then, TimeXtender's been adding a lot of their own providers, and I'll show you shortly. There's a link which I can provide later, which actually has all the CData connectors and what the equivalent TimeXtender or the new type of providers that you can do. Bear in mind, some of those would require a bit of work in order to be able to sort of surface the data, but it all is absolutely possible. TimeXtender releases a migration tool from Jet Classic to TimeXtender. So that was released a year or so ago, and they've been making refinements to it. And this is very important for Jet Analytics customers, because what we don't want to do is have to redevelop a whole lot of stuff. So that migration tool allows you to move data, basically transfer your project into the time TDI edition. And then about 2 weeks ago, TimeXtender and Insightsoftware announced a partner extension. So I'm pretty happy with this, because I've been quite cognizant of the fact that Jet Analytics has got its limitations for customers that have aspirations for the cloud and for AI. And I've been waiting to see which way it's going to go, and I'm pleased to say that that not only has that partnership been extended, but it's extending to open up availability for all of the other bits and pieces, really good things that TimeXtender does. Okay, so what's new in terms of product? Sorry, just checking there's no messages here. We're looking good. Firstly is that new architecture to support cloud deployments. So what that means is that instead of having a staging database and a data warehouse and then a queue, you have what we call this ingest area, and that's kind of new. There's no staging in there. It's really a service that kind of runs in the background, and you can bring all the tables in, and it just updates on an incremental basis and just has all of your data, all of your data sources sitting there. And then we have a prepare, which is where we take that data and transform that and put it into a clean, data warehouse type scenario. And then deliver is essentially your cubes and that sort of thing, but options for more types of endpoints there. Secondly is support for the cloud services. So within Microsoft we have Data Lake, Fabric Lakehouse. You can also deploy to Snowflake, AWS, and later on will be Databricks. Before Databricks will be Fabric Warehouse, which is sort of a mass parallel processing, normally for people with several very, very large databases. So possibly not in quite in the target of the Jet Analytics. And then there's additional capabilities like this MPC server. Xpilot is TimeXtender's own little AI piece, which is nice, and I'll show you some bits here. And then we have other tools such as data enrichment, orchestration, and data quality. And then concurrently with all of that, there's a project ongoing at the moment where they will be any on-premise tool like the TDI application will be sort of full cloud. So you'll be just doing everything without the need to have any VM to host the Azure service and the TDI tool. And so here's, this is probably just a little bit, I've probably talked at the detail on the last slide, and this is probably more detail in this here. So here we've got Jet Classic, you've got the business unit and the staging database. TDI, you've got no business unit, so the idea of that business unit goes away. Don't have external business units, there's no such thing anymore. Ingest service instead, and then a service to ingest data from all data sources set to incrementally upload on a schedule. Staging to data warehouse, that's what we call a prepare instance. So we've got the single place where within that prepare instance you have little parts where you have a part where you do the staging, a part where you do the data warehouse. And then you have, currently a lot of you will have queues. Some of you are multi-dimensional and some of you are tabular. So we call that a deliver instance. And the deliver instance allows you to deploy that to multiple endpoints. So for example, if you've got an on-premise tabular server and then you're also going for Power BI, you could deploy to tabular on-prem and also to a Power BI semantic model. You can deploy to REST API if you want to integrate that with other solutions, and etc. Now, one point to note here is that these deliver instances were multi-dimensional. What you would actually need to reconfigure that in the tabular in the deliver instance. It's just a different way it's written. We've done that for quite a few clients where they've had multi-dimensional, and they've kind of seen, okay, well, tabular is the future, or the new architecture is the future, and we've done that. It's not particularly, it's kind of quite, because you know what the data model is. It's just a functional exercise. Right. And this is the interesting bit here where you've got the target technology. So if you take ingest, you've got the option of a SQL database or Azure SQL. But in TDI, in the future, SQL Azure SQL Managed Instance, Data Lake Gen 2, Fabric Warehouse, Snowflake Storage. Same sort of thing for prepare and deliver. You have options for Power BI, CSV, Tabular, Click, which are other, Click and Tableau are other front-end visualization tools that compete with Power BI, in REST API, etc. And also this MPC server, which we'll talk about. So I'm just going to click on that and just show you how that looks. Now, the other important point here is that for those that work on the day-to-day and Jet Analytics, you have what's called a repository database. You'll no longer have a repository database. That's essentially moved to the cloud, and then everything's like configured into here. So when you log into the TDI tool, you actually log in, and then it retrieves all of that metadata from the cloud server. So in here, what I have are these ingest services. So I've got and we call each one, we've talked about ingest, prepare, and deliver. These are all categorized as like instances. So you have an instance, and it's that instance is one or three of these. Now, normally, you can see I've got a whole lot of instances here. Normally, you would have one ingest instance and one prepare instance, and then you might have many deliver instances. So you might have a deliver instance for essentially each sort of, you might have a finance deliver instance, or you could have a deliver instance for, sales, or deliver instance for everything. But you might create multiple deliver instances. So if I just go, I'm just going to go through in here and add. And up here we have environments which is separate. So that's kind of like your test and dev type environment. But up here, if I just add ingest instance, then this here are the options that you have for storing. So this is the type of infrastructure that you install all the data of your ingestion. And so ingestion is all of your raw data. So you can still go SQL database storage. So if you wanted to upgrade today but still keep everything on-prem, you can do that, but you'll be in a new type of model. So SQL Azure, Data Lake Gen 2, Managed Instance, Fabric, and Snowflake. So depending on what you pick, you put all your tokens and set up all of that within your, for example, within your Fabric environment. and go from there. The prepare instance, so this is where you would do all of your data modeling and that sort of thing. These are the options here. Database, this is SQL data warehouse or dedicated SQL pools for those sort of very large data sets, massive parallel processing that we've talked about. So it's been deprecated and will be replaced by Fabric Warehouse later on. Snowflake storage and Microsoft Fabric Lakehouse storage. And then finally, the other type of instance here is the deliver instance. So this is the instance where, where people actually look at the data. So yeah, in terms of your deliver, that's kind of like you're getting that all nice and ready and easy for the business user. Your ingest and prepare, like often your ingest, you might, if you have a data scientist or they might want to get into that ingest service. So that's everything, but definitely it's not something that you open up for lots of people to play around with. And here we've got these endpoints, and we've got a CSV, Power BI, Click, Tableau, Tabular, and REST API. And the last one down here, certainly not least, is that EPC server that we talked about. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this is that you can create your model and you can add more than one endpoint. Okay, so I could have an endpoint for Power BI. I could also have an MCP endpoint. Now, if you've got some guy in another office who uses Tableau, you can make a Tableau endpoint. So that's an overview of sort of setting up that all of the storage and processing kind of infrastructure. The other thing I just want to show you down here is the data source connections. So if we add the data source connections here, this is the data sources, a lot of these that have replaced the C data. You can see that there's a whole bunch of them here, and then you've got this type of data source, and then this is the provider that it's using. And these are the providers that you of the build of the provider. And this is where you would go to update, or you can actually say, I want the provider to be automatically updated. So just while I'm here, this here is a post by TimeXtender, and it talks about the end of the CData partnership. And so in here, we've got all of the CData providers mapped to what the currently available alternative is for those providers. So that's something that's been fairly fast moving. Happy to talk to anyone about additional data sources or plans for, if you do have CData, upgrading to some of these alternatives. All right, so we move on. This here is just really an overview of the process flow and the tools that kind of sit around it. So essentially what we've got, here we've got all of our data sources that's ingested. So this here, is a slightly different model from what we've got. We've got the ingest service, and that can be, on any of these platforms. The prepare is where essentially, your data warehouse would reside, and the deliver is your products, your semantic models and other endpoints. But then up here, we've got these other tools, which we'll just briefly go through shortly: data enrichment, data quality, and orchestration. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will switch to just show you the product very, very briefly. Hopefully I won't get myself into getting into too much detail. So what we've got here, so you can see it's a similar look there as the Jets Data Manager. So in here we've got, but it handles it's quite different. So up here, these are the ingest instances. So you can see down the bottom here, I'm logged in as Tim Turner, Tim Business Insights Turner down the bottom right. And you can see all of those instances that have been set up in the portal. So when you set them up in the portal, you give access to certain people to be able to access those in this. And they log in and they either can see them or they can't. So here you have your ingest instance, and I've opened that up, and this is just in here you might right click on a data source and there's like a metadata manager, which is sort of a lot richer type tool for managing all of your metadata and what tables and fields you need and overwriting data types and that sort of thing. So it's quite a good improvement on that. This is Business Central, and this just because I wanted to just point out the Dynamics 365 finance and operations. TimeXtender's got a really nice connector that handles that really well. So it uses, for those that are interested in F&O, F&O has been changing their, there's been about three changes in the way that you get data out of F&O. It was export to Azure and then export to Data Lake, and now it's integrate to Fabric Lakehouse, I believe. Because it's already in Fabric Lakehouse, essentially we have a connector which just looks directly at that data rather than having to connect to it and bring that through back in again. And then it just goes straight from there into your staging area. So that's sort of a nice thing. And then, so then if we go back over to the left here, we can see that we've got this is my instance, and I've got two data areas. So this is a project that I've migrated out of Jet Analytics Classic now, and into the TimeXtender data integration. Okay, so this is kind of how things would look if you integrated your project. So you've got this is essentially the staging area, and then I could double click on that, and that'll open up the data warehouse area into that. So the data moves from here into there, and then finally into your tabular model here. So if I just going to open up this deliver one, and just to show you, because this deliver model here, just close a couple of those, has actually two endpoints, right? So this one here is a Power BI semantic model. So essentially, when we process this, it will just push that model directly into a Power BI semantic model, and away you go creating your dashboards and that. Also have this one here, it's like I call it AI server, which is the MCP server, and then you can plug something like Claude or something into that and ask natural language questions to say, hey, how does this, tell me all my overdue customers and that sort of thing. Up here is another very nice feature here, which is the Xpilot. So Xpilot is TimeXtender's own AI sort of question and answer capability. So I use this when I, like for example, if I get an error, I copy the error, and then I say, I get this error when I do this, and it goes and tells me what to do. Okay. So if I get like implement a year-on-year measure for Power BI, it goes and finds that. And the nice thing about difference between this and using just any other type of tool is that this is customized to look at all of the knowledge base and all the history and everything from there. And so it's kind of telling you how to do it. It gives you the depth measure, and then tells you deploy and execute, etc. So that's a very good added feature, if you like, of using the tool. I just find you go, oh, gee, I can't remember how to do this. Click on that and ask a question, and puts you up. So the question that might be going through some people's head is, okay, well, Fabric, we've been told that that's everything all in one place, and it's all it's all stitched together. Well, it's kind of stitched together. There's many components, but you need to organize them so they work together. And some of those might require some manual coding or configuration. And so TimeXtender can kind of automate that. Okay, so for example, TimeXtender coordinates the ingestion, the modeling, deployment, models data warehouse, then it deploys it all in that same type of pipeline. Remember, because this is a metadata-driven solution, you have full lineage and audit trail documentation all just kind of built into the product. So it's not, and this has always been the message of the tool set anyway. It doesn't kind of do anything that these other tools can't do. It just lets you do it in a fraction of the time and a lot easier. And so it makes it exponentially more powerful, because the big value is, okay, we can get things done faster rather than hiring 3 developers and a primary SQL person and a Spark person, put them in a room and they code away, where we just build the model and deploy it. Okay, we're going for time. Okay, not too bad. So these are just the just going to talk now about the tools, the additional tool sets. I've kind of talked about, if you move Jet Analysis Classic to TDI, this is kind of what you get, and you get all these cloud deployments and everything. And that's that top bit that you can see here on the screen: data integration, modeling, delivering clean, reliable data. Data enrichment is another add-on that you can ensure uniformity, across various systems. So, you've got customer in your CRM and a customer in your Business Central. Let's use this tool to uniform them out. Also, you can add additional contextual fields to that. So, I don't know, an example for that is we've always had these Excel data sources where we've done data mappings and maybe mapped old GL codes to other codes, reporting categories and things that aren't in the system. You can use data enrichment to do that. Data quality is really about checking the data as it comes in, and saying, okay, well, if something, you might set up these rules. If you've got a customer that doesn't have a customer price list, send an email to this person and tell them that this customer doesn't have a customer price list, and you should do that. So you basically setting the rules and standards for monitoring that and messaging things that need to be done by certain people. We all know in the past we found out about this when we're sort of analysing our reports at the end of the month. Why isn't that right? Oh, gee, we could set that up wrong. So this nips that in the bud and gets you to inspect that data as it comes in. And orchestration is really the tool has like a visualization, so you see all of the processes. So you're going, okay, well, my ODX is updating, and then it might, if something doesn't work, or what we all know is that, execution package hasn't worked. It's kind of an interface for managing all of that. So the execution package might not work. Obviously, when it fails, you usually get an error. This would interpret that error and say what you need to do is go and do this. You go and do that, and then in the interface, you can restart that particular step and say, okay, good, we'll carry on and finish with that. So it kind of removes that sort of, when things don't work, someone gets an email, they go onto the server and have a look and, where do I need to restart this from, etc., etc. So that orchestration is a nice tool. So NCP server. So as you've hopefully been concentrating with, one of those endpoints is NCP server. So what this does is it creates a framework, if you like, for viewing the data in our semantic model. Now, what this does is it's, now you've got clean data. Okay, so you're delivering trustworthy data and it's secure through, because the NCP server is like an industry type thing, right? This is how you should do it. So TimeXtender just generates that for you. But some of the things, if I go back to the tool, if I go into my table and then I go into my customer and I edit this table, I don't want to, yeah. So see in here, you've got the description. So we can say, put in language description of the customer, of the table, or of the field. Okay, so that shipping time, we could say, okay, this determines when the shipment should leave. Okay, and so what that does is that we've got that metadata and we type that in. We as business people know what it is, but if we type that in, then the likes of Claude and ChatGPT can read that and go, oh, okay, so this is where you sell. This is who you sell stuff to. You might have another table called client, which might be, I don't know, a list of servers or something. And so we don't want it to misrepresent, no, you've got 5 clients which are servers. Well, no, it's just a technical client, not a customer. So very powerful. If you work with this and add context, then this is a good example of making your data usable by these AI tools. And then in the future, this is obviously going to be expanded. So what you see here is got these MCP servers, and you might have ChatGPT or Claude, but also Xpilot Analytics being its own other tool to be able to use sort of natural language to ask questions about your data. A few example use cases in there. And that's kind of Xpilot Analytics is kind of a bit more detail on what I was just mentioning there. And lastly, we just want to point out that there is a migration tool. So in your old TimeXtender, Jet Analytics version, once this has been rolled out and you guys you can up in the, just goes tools, migrate, and what you can see here is you can migrate your data sources, your data warehouse, semantic models. You can even migrate your data warehouse data. So if you're using slowly changing dimensions or something like that, if you were to do a full load from the start again, you wouldn't get that history. So you can bring that data over and just carry on. So that's a most of what I was going to cover today. So just in summary, Jet Analytics will be renamed to possibly Jet Analytics Classic, and that will be known as the on-premise version. Okay, so that's an on-prem version. If you want to stay on-prem, you can stick with that. You could still upgrade to the new platform because it supports SQL Server and that sort of thing. But that's Jet Analytics Classics staying there for those customers that for whatever reason they've no desire to move to the cloud and they want to just keep everything on their own servers. So with the new partnership, there's the ability to migrate to the new cloud version with cloud capabilities, additional to purchase these additional modules and products which integrate with the new version. Now, this announcement's been made very recently, and there's no I know of no pricing rules or anything about any commercial side of it at this point, but I know reasonable amount about the technical side and the product side. So Jet Analytics Jet Analytics Classic will continue to be supported, but I'm imagining that that's not where the investment's going to be. It's going to be in the new cloud version. So that concludes my my formal part of the presentation. I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions or comments, or then please let us know. If you want to find out more, just in general terms about general product, obviously come to me, we can have a chat about it. The TimeXtender website just has, because the partnership is opening up access to all of the products, you're not going to get lost and go, oh, jeepers, I like that, but I can't buy it through Jet or something. So TimeXtender has a nice website covering the products and the like. So we're happy to assist with your data strategy, assess your current environment, discuss any types of data sources and that sort of thing. One question was time frame. So I've been talking to TimeXtender, and I think they're looking at around May. So it's only 2 months away. That shouldn't be too far away. All the products there is just people organising the channel and that sort of thing. I know some people are still typing up questions. All right. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I had a technical question. Does it look at custom fields and just and conditional lookups? Yeah, no, it migrates the whole project, everything. So I took a Jet Analytics project and then just migrated it, and that was fine. A few little bits and pieces. The only thing that doesn't come across is if you've got multi-dimensional, you'd need to redo that in the tabular format, either before migrating or after the migrating. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, and that's it. So I'll sorry, someone else is frantically typing a question. So just wait. I think if we'll finish up now, and then if you want to just flick me a note, I'm answer any questions that you have. So thanks very much. I hope you found it useful. Really keen to hear feedback, positive, negative, neutral, and keen to hear if anyone's interested in sort of starting looking at this journey. I'm personally pretty excited by it. I think it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad it's here. We can start thinking towards the modern world. All right. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. Cheers.